Okay. This is real short. Most of everyone knows kind of what's going on with this, but this is just a real quick update on our Section 22 study that Core has got going on with MSAC. Jen Gitt, our project manager, put this slide together. And I'm not going to, we sent this to Sandy and we'll share these few slides with everyone so you could dig into this. The big takeaway here is, the tasks that are ongoing on the right side there. We're still on schedule to wrap this up this fall. We've done a couple of those initial meetings. The sediment impacts footprint and GIS project are up and running. Most of the work that's been done really in the last 6 months is on the economics side. And we're just starting to get into these tasks like that are really focused kind of on the engineering side, the beneficial uses, sediment management costs, and the like, and the constraints and all of that, where I'll have a little more involvement. But we are making progress. We had a project delivery team meeting just a couple of days ago talking about the economics analysis that's ongoing, and share a few more bullets here just as a reminder. We did have the solutions workshop in June. Those SMEs came up with those 4 different technologies or management methods that we will discuss in the report, kind of in a generally qualitative way. And then following up with that watershed sediment management piece, we did engage our grade control and bank stabilization resources in the Core. And Mr. Chris Herring and myself were out on the Niobrara in November to do some assessment, and I'll show a slide on that a little bit later. We're continuing to work on that effort, and we'll integrate the results of that into the report. Fortunately, we have a program in the Core that allows us to leverage that person and that program without any cost to us, and therefore without any cost to the project. So that's kind of a free benefit there. The economic analysis, Jeff Kavanaugh in our economic section in planning is the lead there, and all of the past management costs and the current economic impacts have been cataloged, and what we're working through right now is really just with the Missouri River Water Management Group, and I think many of you know John Remus, working with him and his office to, as best we can, define what the future conditions, or what we call the FWAP, the future without project, looks like. And that's how many decades more do we have of this benefit before it starts to be significantly degraded? When do we consider that full hydropower production might be limited? When would you have a major rehab of hydropower due? And how long in the future is that? Do we think that's going to be economically viable, or with the expansion of alternative green energy as that sector rapidly expands, will a major rehab of what could be at the time 100-plus-year-old hydropower facility be economically justifiable? I don't know. We're just throwing all the thoughts out there on the table so that we hopefully don't miss any of them. And as we were talking earlier, I think to Sandy's question about that life cycle economics, was talking to Jeff, and he's already coded in these 9 different variable discount rate models. looking into the future. So absolutely, you'll have, as we scoped, we'll have kind of our traditional BC ratio, which, as we know, in the core, the rub is that to have it can't, that model doesn't say, or that model doesn't capture the retention of benefits. To have a BC ratio, it's got to be a new benefit over. You've got to have a new benefit on the numerator versus a cost on the denominator. And we're not really trying to create new benefits. We're trying to preserve the ones we have and maybe recapture some that are lost. So that the economics models are coming along, and we will, probably in the next 30 to 60 days here, have a follow-up meeting with MSAC, or that second econ meeting, where we'll share a lot of that once we get a finalized picture on all the different possible future conditions scenarios. And a little update there is through the build, what's it called? The Build Back Better. It's one of the COVID recovery bills that worked its way through Congress, and some of that money did fortunately trickle down to us. And so this summer, we did fly all new terrain LiDAR in the area around Gavins and all the way up through Randall last winter. And then this summer, we'll have contracted crews doing all new surveys of the Missouri River from Gavins Point all the way up to Fort Randall, and in Fort Randall all the way up to Big Bend. And new surveys of the White River and the Niobrara up that lower about 20 miles, the lowest 20 miles of the Niobrara, where we have monitoring range lines. Those surveys include the ranges we have, but they're going to be higher resolution this time, so we can do some what we think is a little more detailed analysis. We're also getting new bed material samples there, which help us when we do modeling to determine what's sand, what's gravel, what's fines, where does it go in the system. So that's great news. Unfortunately, just because of when the money showed up and the time it takes to collect all of those samples, that data will be in house and be started on the analysis path right about the time we wrap this up. But will certainly be available as we go forward. We've also got funds that update that report we use a lot, that sedimentation commission, or sedimentation conditions at Lewis and Clark Lake, which I think we authored in 2013. Once we get the new surveys and sediment samples in, we will update that report. We've got funding to do that. So we're probably looking at next summer to have that done. So that's good news. Would have been great to have it a year ago, but we're glad to have it. One of the things that our shop has been working on is these kind of progression estimates. These will, I would certainly expect, change a little when we get new surveys. This is kind of the idea of taking the historical trend and then pushing that into the future, to kind of take that average annual line, pushing it out decade by decade. You see 2020, they're at, guessing probably it was 29 to 30% full a couple of years ago. We'll confirm that with these new 2022 surveys. And, that looks awfully far down there in 2020. That's really an estimate of kind of where the front tip of the delta is, because as you all know, being out on the river, on the lake there, the visible delta, where all the cattails and the new sandbars are, that you can see at the water surface, is a long way back from where, I guess you could call it the toe of what we call the foreset of the delta. It's where all the very farthest downstream leading edge of where that sand is depositing under the water, and as you all know, in that 824 to 826 range, the lake's awfully shallow in there. It's only a couple of feet deep even in that area. So we've taken these estimates and kind of just draw a line in the sand. Whew, it's a punny Friday. So we draw this line in the sand as an estimate, and this there's a whole bunch of these slides, but we kind of take this to where we think where it goes completely full, and that looks like about 2150. And I do want to note that we're doing this estimate to be as reasonable or as practical as we can, and to do that, we're estimating kind of full at 1206, not 1210, which a lot of times you see the numbers on the in the other reports, because we manage the reservoir at 1206. Right, you can't stack sand up above where there's no water. So when this reservoir is kind of completely full, you're going to have as it builds, you'll have a little bit of a sloping face, but there's not going to be any sand at 1210 at the top of the flood control pool, because the reservoir is very, very rarely up there. So we kind of said 1206 is kind of what it'll on average fill to, and we adjusted these numbers accordingly. So these all go out there. We also did the same thing going up the Missouri and up the Niobrara. These decades are spaced much closer because the slope's a little steeper up here than going. The vast majority of the material is depositing out at the face of the delta in the lake, but there is a backwater effect from the Niobrara, which is slowly stacking some sediment. Everybody up at Lazy River Acres knows that very well, right? The river stages are going up there. So that kind of backup of sediment is going to continue up the Missouri, while coming down from Fort Randall is a degradation reach, where that hungry water is scouring sediment and leaving gravels. So this area gets pretty question marky, well out into next century, up in those, kind of I'd say, from 855 or 6 all the way up to the left end of the screen. We just don't know really what, how the one aggradation reach is going to butt up against this Fort Randall degradation area, exactly what that is going to look like. But the point of this is that this allows econ, the economic analysis, to put a ever expanding footprint on the impacts of sedimentation. As Tim eloquently said earlier, past analysis has just been the footprint of the lake itself, and we know that effects are much broader here. And so this is one piece that's ongoing in the study, where kind of engineering analysis has been supporting the economic work that's been going on. We did also update that dredging plan that we developed in 2015 to 2020 FY fiscal year 2021 federal numbers or dollars. And Jeff and the econ team is now kind of applying that into those economic models as the one management plan we have really good dollars on. That was always the plan for this phase of the study. Let's take one technology that we've already got really good dollars on and put it into the economic model, knowing that we could do that with others if we develop them in more detail in a subsequent phase. And then a last follow-up. This is a slide captured from Chris Herring's presentation he gave to this group. I think it was it earlier this spring, but anyway, on the analysis that's ongoing on the Niobrara, looking at ways of reducing a load to the Missouri River. This is just as an example. There's in the center there. That's the one there at where Spencer Dam was. And you can see how that we do have a somewhat acute reintroduction of sediment from behind Spencer Dam that had been all piled up there. But since it was flushed twice a year, it was essentially in sediment equilibrium again. There was obviously, when the dam was built almost 100 years ago, there was a sediment deficit while that all filled in for 20 or 30 years. Now that the dam is no longer there, all of that sediment that caused that deficit when it was collected behind the reservoir is going to come back out into the lower system. So how quickly that happens? Well, there was a fall of 2020 LIDAR survey that was done. That's that picture in the center there. So that's less than 18 months after, or about 18 months after the failure of Spencer Dam, and a lot of it has already come out. We're hoping to have an updated set of LIDAR for this in the fall of 2022, collected in December, I think. So we'll have a third set to consider there. So that's a piece that's ongoing there. That's just a really quick update there on the study itself. That's the last slide I have. I do have about 2 or 3 minutes if there's a quick question or two, and I'll send these update slides to Sandy so that she can send them out to y'all.
Is there a time frame on the next economic meeting, analysis meeting?
No, I think Jen sent you an email stating generally that we've been trying to, with schedules and stuff, coordinate with Missouri River Water Management so that we all agree on what those possible future scenarios look like. We do have a call scheduled with John Remus and Water Control at the end of next week. I think that'll give Econ the guidance they need to wrap those up. So I'm guessing we're probably 30 days away from that, maybe 30 to 45 days on that, Sandy. But we'll coordinate that. I think after we have that call next Friday, we'll follow up with you because we'd be in a better place to kind of judge the length of that remaining effort on the Econ side.
Sure, that sounds good.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and everyone. And look, you all know where to find me. I'm not going anywhere. So we'll continue working on this, and Sandy, I'll send you these slides. And if there are any follow-up questions, of course, I'm here. I'm available. Just send them, route them through Sandy or send them to me direct. I think pretty much everybody got my email. So thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate everything that MSAC does as an honest broker for the residents in the area, not just Gavin's, but the whole Missouri basin. I'm going to step away. Wish everybody a good day.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.